So, what's up, y'all? I have another important demo here about folder structure and naming conventions. This is it's important for anything, but it's especially important for visual effects because, as you know, when we deal with image sequences and multiple elements, there's just literally thousands of files sometimes. Um, that I think I gave you. Just a peek at one project that I was working on. You know, if you have 5 shots and all of them have visual effects involved, you know, in this amount of sort of image sequences and nuke files, like you need to be extremely organized. Um, or if you're doing film related stuff and like you're doing it over the course of a few years at Emily Carr or whatever it might be, you have to be thorough about it. And I'm going to show you how to do that. I'm going to show you best practices. I'm going to show you sort of what's commonplace, most specifically in visual effects. So let's dive in. These are the notes that I would give you, but I'm just going to walk through them the way I would explain in class, mostly. To get started, well, let's see. You're going to have a project, right? And I'm just going to stick it in here. And you're going to want to name the folder of your project. Usually we do that in all caps. So let's say sample project. Any kind of top level or parent or main project folder, you're going to want to do in all caps. If it has more than one word, you're going to notice that I put an underscore here to separate the words, not a space. You want to avoid spaces. Not all softwares are going to like spaces. Not all computers are going to like spaces or like be able to understand your files. So you want to either use an underscore to separate words, or if your file or folder is not in all caps, use capital letters to separate each word by capitalizing the first letter of each word. So as you can see, this says use capitals without spaces, but there are no spaces. Anyways, if you have a particularly long name, you can just abbreviate, remove the vowels, use only the consonants. So here it says abbreviate long names. So in this case, you know, you might do something like this. Maybe sometimes you need like one consonant or something. Cool. And case, you know, I said use all caps for the top level. You will use cases to indicate hierarchy. So like sort of like what comes first and what comes last and what has priority, or what occupies a category, such as pre-production. So I'm going to go back over here. And your top level folder might not be the only one that is in all caps. So here we go. In a project, I'm going to have pre-production. I'm also going to have production. And let's say, what happens inside of pre-production? One thing that happens in there is storyboards, but I'm not going to put it in all caps because it is a subset of pre-production, a sub-level. Concept art, maybe, yeah. I don't know, maybe treatments or something. If it's visual effects, you might want like sort of descriptions of the context so that you can develop the aesthetics properly in visual effects according to like what the writers are thinking. I don't know. Let's see. When you do this, you're going to want to get used to navigating in list view. You'll notice that I'm always in this view of things. A lot of people, I still see doing this. Hold up. Let's go over here. I still see a lot of people doing this. When there's a ton of files, it's just not, you just can't understand what's going on. Plus, you want to be able to look at this kind of information, what kind of file it is, and if things are numbered in order, you want them to appear in that order, easily legible. If something is in a sort of, let me find something that has like a lot of stuff on it. Okay, cool. We have like this little sequence right here. If we go here and sort of open this up, if you're working with a lot of stuff for a long time and for hours, you can't really like decipher these numbers and and then count like this where you go left to right, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then start all over again on the left again and go 5, 6, 7, 8. Now we just want to go straight up and down like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yeah. Or like this. Cool. There we go. Yes. Also use use things that are intuitive, things that don't need to be explained, because you might open this thing 6 months later, 3 months later, 2 weeks later, and not remember exactly how you created every single folder name or file name. So it needs to be intuitive. You need to be able to just figure it out just at a glance. And in film and visual effects, it's highly collaborative. So that means other people need to be able to find their way through it easily. Use names that can and must only mean one thing and one thing only. And in the context of how people arrive at those folders. So let me show you an example. So in pre-production, let's say we have concept art, of course. Let's say we also have sketches. But if someone who doesn't know what you're doing opens this for the first time, they're going to be, let's say that they are looking for concept art. But if they arrive here, they won't know which one of these to look at, concept art or sketches, because sometimes concept art is in the form of a sketch. So you want to avoid that kind of confusion. So if you do have a folder of sketches, you would put it in the concept art. It should flow in a way that is according to intuitive common sense as best as possible, so that things are found in one place and one place only. And let's see, use very individual and searchable names. So that goes back to like, try not to use interchangeable terms. Like concept art and sketches could, in a way, mean the same thing. Same with storyboards. That's just an example. Let's see, searchable. So like, let's say someone is working with you and has not quite learned your folder structure just yet. You want to use the kind of terminology that, they're not going to try to navigate through a folder, but they might go to a search and just try to type in the name, like, I'm looking for concept art, so let me type in concept art, and they should be able to find it. You know what I mean? Let's see. And it's not always 100% achievable, to make it like thoroughly intuitive, but like people should be able to find your stuff, and you should be able to find your own stuff in 1 or 2 tries. In that process, you want it to be easy to learn, just by them clicking through it without you having to even explain the structure. You should be able to say, here's my project, it's well organized, and then someone just sort of clicks around and says, okay, I see how they're doing this. Cool, I see how they have the hierarchy, I see like why this makes sense. And if I were to flesh this out more, in production, I'd probably have video, probably have audio. In video, I'd probably have like editing, comp. That's one example. It might not be exactly the same for every project. Let's see, if it's a simpler, it depends how complex the project is. Like in a lot of cases, I'd probably stop here and go Premiere, Nuke, output, and there's here you see the cases indicating hierarchy. So at these top levels, I have all caps. Then I have just capital at the beginning, and eventually I arrive at no capitals at all. So nuke, I do the same thing. Renders and scripts. Audio, I don't know, whatever software you're using. Source video, source audio for like your original footage and stuff like that. Cool. So yeah, people should be able to just click through and figure out how you've got things set up easily. Should be smooth. Just keep in mind, anticipate problems when you're creating these folders. What problems might people run into as they click through this? So after you set up your structure, you do want to set up the whole structure before you start populating it with files. But as you click through to make sure, like, oh, are people going to understand this? Okay, once you get into the video and audio categories, what you have next are a list of softwares in your source material, right? It's fully consistent. Cool. Also, what you don't want is to have a name of something somewhere. Let me see. Right. So you don't want to have like something of the same name existing at different levels. So you don't want to be like storyboards here, and then in pre-production have something called storyboards. You want to have things named in each way only once. You don't want to have like you don't even want to do it like this, like storyboard drafts or something, and then in here say storyboards. It's not intuitive. Like this would need to go over here. Feel me? All right. Okay, so everything is alphanumeric. You need to keep that in mind. So the way when you view your files in the browser, it's going to display them with, you'll see here, that which I've done for you all's demos. It's going to display the numbers in order first. Then it's going to go alphabetically. You see it's going 1 to 3, and then it's like it's E, R, and S. It's alphanumeric. So let's see. You want to be aware of this when you set up your names. So let's see. Let's say I wanted to name things by month. If I had January, February, March, April, fine. But when you actually put this in your files, April starts with A. So it's going to do this. It's going to put April first, and then it's going to put like other months in alphabetical order. Then your files will not appear in order, and you can't find them. So in order to fix that, you add numbers, because your computer will understand that. Boom, boom, boom. So in the case that letters actually put it out of the order that you want, put numbers in front of it. But you need to do that thinking and that work a little bit ahead of time, and test out your folder structure to make sure it works. Boom, boom. If there is something of like priority that must always be first, put a little trick is to put 00 underscore in front of it, or just underscore, because the computer will also understand like a character as priority and sort of put it first in order. So let me do an example. So like here, if if I have like guidelines for these classes or something, and it starts with G or whatever letter it starts with. If I put 0, 0 in front of it, it's going to go to the top. And it's always going to be at the top where I can find it easily. Cool, cool. All right. So now when you're naming your folders and your files, in visual effects we use V. You'll notice this in the nuke scripts. I always use V01, R01. So this V stands for version, R stands for revision. This is what you can use when you're making edits and updating your work and going back to fix your previous work. So let's say we have, shot 1. If we're working on the first version and we're making minor changes to the first version, but we want to save those changes, then we would, when we save the file, the new file name, we'll keep version 1, but just update the revision 2, so that when you go back to it, you know that it's the same basic treatment of the shot, but you just changed something small and you wanted to save that change to perhaps be able to go to the previous one. If you're making a lot of changes to the shot, it's still the same shot, but you're going to try a whole different approach. Like, let's say, for example, version 1 was like a blue color grade treatment or something, but you know what, you want to go in a different direction or something, even though it's the same shot. Let's say the first one was blue, and for this one you're gonna try a red color treatment or something. Then change the version and then start the revisions over again. And then you can go version 2, RO2, and if you want, you might have 5 or 6 or 7 versions. You could put a description at the end of it, like blue. Something like that. Cool. I'm gonna delete this. Cool. So if you have the same type of asset, but it's just a different one of those assets, in this case I'm talking about shots. Let's just update this number right here. That's shot 1. That's shot 2. Both are shots, so they should both be called shots, or they might be masks, or who knows. And so when you have these iterations, you'll notice that I have a 0. I don't just write V1. I want to have a frame padding there, so that once this goes into double digits, the software understands what order to put them in. If you do because if you just do 1 and then later on you do 10, and both of these start with 1, the computer could get, or the software could get confused about what order it goes in. Let's see. So you do want placeholder digits. Remember we put that little 0 in front of the PNG in Premiere? Yeah, like that. An even number is preferred, but it's not totally necessary. Like if you know that you're going to have something in double digits, put a third one. If you know it's going to be in the hundreds, then you might want to do this. Cool, but always have at least 2. If you're naming a file, sort of an image file, you want that, it's called frame padding. You want frame padding of 4. It's rare that a shot will be longer than this. You almost never need more than 4, but it's better to have even numbers or multiples of 4. Cool. So this format is name dot number dot extension. So this is the name, this is a dot, this is the number of the frame, and this is the next dot, and this is the file extension. Name dot number dot extension is mostly the convention. There are other ways to do it, like you can do it could be underscore extension. Or some people have spaces in there. You don't want spaces. You don't want to underscore before your frame number. You want a dot, name dot number dot extension. I mentioned add descriptions when needed. I mentioned this a little bit earlier, but I'm just going to go into it a little more. So let's say you have a whole bunch of shots and you just don't even remember what they are anymore when you look at them. So let's say, for shot 1, version 1, revision 3, you did some kind of color correction. You might even abbreviate this and be like CC, or yeah, let's keep it like that. So this is added here to the end. Usually we add it to the end when we've gone through a bunch of stuff and we're like, oh, you know what, I'm going to try something else. And this is what I did on that revision, because you have to keep it consistent, right? Chances are the first ones didn't have any description. So we just add that description there on the end. And when you view the files, it keeps them all in order because it's still alphanumeric before you get to the description. There are other situations where you need to distinguish ahead of time, like what shots are maybe a wide shot or a close-up or something like that. That's common. And in that case, the description will go first. Here you see I've written out shot and no space, 01. It's because for me it's clear to see. Other ways to do it are like this. It might just be SH. Everyone knows that means shot. For some people, it's just not convenient or easy to look at these letters next to these numbers and see clearly in an instant when you're looking at thousands of files at a time. So you might put an underscore to separate letters from numbers. Depends on the length. Like if it's a short file name overall, sure, write out the word shot. If it's going to be a long name overall, then yeah, you might want to start abbreviating. If you're going to be looking at a ton of stuff, yeah, you want to start separating letters and numbers using underscores. I just want to glance at some of those other files that I have. Yeah, so if you look at this situation over here, I don't use S, but the person I was working, this animator who I was working with did, and I understand that perfectly well. S26, S27, S28, S29, cool. I definitely didn't create this folder structure. She created this folder structure, and I was able to just click through it and say, yep, I get it. Even though there's like this is a problem. That somehow there's something here called S26 and here called S26. For me, that creates an exception, and it's very irritating to work with. You'll see here that there's these sort of animated guard characters, 1, 2, 3, and 4, depending on where they're placed in the scene. Here they have name underscore number dot extension. It's very irritating. Luckily, my version of Nuke could understand that. They don't have frame padding here. It's very irritating. So here's an example of what not to do. Most of it is nice, though. Here we have the type. Since there are gonna be multiple assets in this folder, it's telling me that the file type, that there are sequences of targas, TGA files. There are sequences of PNGs here. BG, that's common language for talking about background. I know that, or common abbreviation for talking about background. BG, FG. Yeah, so this is just an example of how that can work out. Anyways, a little bit of hierarchy, sort of like some of it's consistent and some of it is not in terms of the hierarchy, but that's okay because this is not that deep of a folder structure anyway. How else can I break this down? S3, S4, I don't even know what that means, but I know that it's in this folder called guards, and these are some variation of that. It's fine just by looking at this stuff. And if you're a compositor, you're working with people, Sometimes you might have to figure out stuff like this, like when people hand you stuff, and at that point you'll learn better than any other way how important it is to have as consistent a structure as possible, because you don't want the people that you work with spending time figuring out where you put your files and why. You want them spending time on like doing the work. So and same for you if you're working on your own stuff and going back to it. So last step here is make yourself a template. Make a template for yourself, something like this. Like, for everyone works differently, everyone has a different focus, but it's good to have a template. What I do is I do this: folder, structure, template. And there's a template that I have that I can just copy and paste wherever I'm going to do my work, and then rename it whatever is the name of the project, and then go in here and start fixing it to make sure that it fits the nature of that specific project, but without changing it too much. Cool. I think that's it. Yeah, so I would challenge you to go ahead and make a structure. Since you're in school, and you're probably going to want to save your school stuff. If I were you, and I showed a couple second years this in one of those editing classes or something that I dropped in on, you probably want to do this ECU, and you probably want to do this. Whoops. I'm just gonna fast track you here real quick. Let's say you have PHMSA. Let's say you're part of other programs too. I don't know, but let's focus on PHMSA, and you would say probably year 1, something like that. Something like that. And then let's see, let's say you're in like year 3, and then you do PHMSA 323 VFS comp, and then drop our entire Dropbox of projects into there. And then let's say you have, I don't know the numbers, but like, cinematography, and then let's say you have like film production, boom, boom, and have them all lined up like that. Maybe this one is called what's it called? PHMSA 200 or something. Core. Sound Essentials, whatever you're working on. Maybe in this you have like grad film and whatever else is happening. Maybe you're doing like a screenwriting elective. Boom, and populate it like that. And it's just very simple to find your way back around. If I were you, I would even go back and reorganize stuff in this way. I'm pretty sure, like, at least for the next few years, you're going to want to go back to this content. Anyways, that's all, friends. Have a good one.